Shedeur Sanders walked into college football spotlight with swagger, a famous last name, and a game to back it all up. But as soon as he stepped onto the national stage, the old guard sharpened their knives. It didn't take long before Rex Ryan, former head coach turned professional opinion hurler, called him lazy, uncommitted, and embarrassment to the game. Loud, wrong, and completely unprovoked.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Ryan's takedown wasn't just a hot take. It was a full-on character assassination. He painted Sanders as a kind of flashy, overhyped player who coasts on legacy and Instagram clout. But then the receipts came in. Real, raw footage from team meetings showing Sanders sitting front and center, locked in with coaches, leading by example, and breaking down film like a seasoned vet. The accusations crumbled instantly. Not only was Shedeur doing the work, he was setting the tone for the room. Rex Ryan, on the other hand, was left looking like a man desperately clinging to a version of the NFL that no longer exists. His commentary wasn't about Sanders' play. It was about Sanders' personality, the confidence, the branding, the refusal to shrink himself to fit a mold built for someone else. And that confidence? It's not an act. It's baked in. It's generational. Deion Sanders didn't raise a quiet competitor. He raised a legacy builder. And now, the league is caught in a quiet storm. Because while Shedeur Sanders' energy may ruffle feathers, what Rex Ryan did, fabricating a false image of a young player for headlines, crosses a line the NFL isn't eager to see redrawn. The league thrives on personalities, sure, but they also thrive on control. And when analysts start dragging players for traits the league secretly markets, like charisma, visibility, and hype, it creates a fracture the NFL can't afford to ignore. This isn't just a story about one analyst with a microphone and an outdated grudge. It's a snapshot of the culture war happening inside professional football. Shedeur Sanders is the face of a new kind of player, media-savvy, unshakably confident, and allergic to conformity. Rex Ryan represents the old-school mindset that still believes players should know their place. And now, the backlash against Ryan is more than just noise. It's a signal. The league's shifting, and the people who don't move with it, they get left behind. Rex Ryan didn't just misjudge Shedeur Sanders. He launched a full-scale attack on the man's integrity and got caught in 4K on national television. With the confidence of someone who thought he was untouchable, Rex Ryan accused Shedeur Sanders of lacking work ethic, called him lazy, said he was an embarrassment to the game. And it wasn't subtle. It was loaded, aggressive, and reeked of something deeper than football critique. This wasn't about plays or stats. This was personal. But there was a problem. Receipts. Within days, behind-the-scenes footage surfaced. Real footage. No speculation. No interpretations. Just Shedeur Sanders, front row in team meetings, locked in with coaches and veterans, studying game plans, taking notes, and showing up a level of focus that directly contradicted everything Rex Ryan said. There was no debate. No, maybe he misunderstood. It was flat out false. And worse, it looked deliberate. And when that truth came out, things got awkward. Because this wasn't just a media moment gone sideways. This was a direct shot at a young player's reputation, and the NFL knew it. According to reports circling media insiders, the league wasn't pleased. Behind closed doors, Rex Ryan was reportedly warned by people within the NFL to knock it off. Not because the league suddenly developed a deep moral compass, but because false narratives like this expose the system's double standards. When a veteran like Ryan uses his platform to drag a rising star based on nothing, it doesn't just hurt the player, it makes the entire league look complicit. This situation pulled back the curtain on a very old story. The NFL's long-standing discomfort with confident, outspoken players who don't wait for permission to take up space. Shedeur isn't just a quarterback. He's a brand. He's media literate, legacy-backed, and unapologetically visible. He knows how to navigate social media, build a platform, and command attention without needing a single snap in the NFL to do it. And for a certain crowd, that's threatening. That confidence, that presence, that refusal to be humble on someone else's terms, it shakes the foundations of the league's old-school culture. The The NFL has always preached humility. Know your role. Respect the veterans. Be grateful. But behind that messaging is an unspoken truth. The league rewards players who conform to its image. Be charismatic, but not too bold. Be marketable, but only within the lines. Be confident, but only once we say you've earned it. Shedeur said no to that. From day one, he came in loud, polished, and self-assured, and he had every right to. His work ethic? Solid. His preparation? Documented. His lineage? Iconic. He's not pretending to be someone he's not. He's not faking it for the cameras. He's not trying to be Dion 2.0. He's taking what his father built and evolving it into his own blueprint. And that authenticity, it's what makes him powerful. But it also makes him a target. Because when players build their own platforms, outside of the league's control, it disrupts the power dynamic. The NFL likes to be the gatekeeper of fame. It wants to control who gets the spotlight, when and how. So when someone like Shedeur comes in already commanding attention, the response from the establishment is almost always the same. Tear him down. Enter Rex Ryan, a former coach who hasn't been relevant on the field in years, but still clings to media relevance by playing the tough guy, the no-nonsense football purist, the guy who, instead of analyzing tape or doing his homework, chose to go on national TV and spin a completely false story about a player's character. Why? Because confidence in a young black quarterback still makes people uncomfortable. Because visibility without permission still makes people angry. And because the idea that a player could walk into the league with both talent and brand power, without first being broken down by the system, is still treated like an offense. That's why this story matters. Not because it's about Shedeur's feelings or Ryan's reputation, but because it exposes attention at the heart of today's NFL, a league that thrives off star power but punishes players for knowing their value too early. It's a double standard baked into the system. When Shedeur posts on social media, he's too flashy. When he markets himself, he's distracted. When he walks into meetings with presence, he's arrogant. But if a veteran with a fraction of his spotlight does the same thing, it's leadership. It's maturity. It's confidence. The league wants charisma, but only in a controlled package. But Shedeur's not playing that game. He's building something else, a personal brand that reflects his upbringing, his goals, and his strategy. He's not loud for the sake of it. He's intentional. Every interview, every post, every appearance, it's calculated. And it's working. That's the irony. While critics try to spin his confidence into a liability, it's actually one of his greatest assets. In an era where visibility drives opportunity, Shedeur isn't just playing the sport. He's playing the business. And he's doing it smarter than most rookies. Let's be honest. If he were quieter, less flashy, less direct, Rex Ryan never says a word. But because Shedeur dares to carry himself like he knows he belongs, he gets publicly accused of laziness by a guy who didn't even check the facts. And when those facts came out, when the footage showed the truth, Rex didn't walk it back. He didn't clarify. He didn't apologize. He vanished. Because in the NFL's echo chamber, accountability only runs one way. Players are expected to answer for everything. Coaches, media personalities, former insiders who built their careers tearing others down, they get to skate. But not this time. The backlash was swift. Fans called it out. Analysts pushed back. And within league circles, the message was clear. This can't fly. You can't just throw baseless accusations at rising stars because you're uncomfortable with how they carry themselves, especially when that player is actually doing the work. The real takeaway here isn't just that Rex Ryan was wrong. It's that Shedeur Sanders, despite being publicly smeared, didn't have to defend himself with words. He had the receipts. He had the footage. He had the truth. And that's what flipped the script. Because in this era, the truth doesn't hide. It lives on camera. It streams. It trends. It uploads in real time. And when you're someone like Shedeur, who documents a grind, who owns his image, who shows the work, you don't need to argue. You just press play. And that's why this incident will stick with the NFL longer than anyone's willing to admit. Because it proved that the old tricks don't work anymore. You can't fabricate a narrative and expect it to stick. You can't weaponize outdated tropes and assume no one will push back. The system of quiet compliance is breaking, and players like Shadur are leading that shift. So the next time a talking head decides to slam a young player for being confident, for having presence, for refusing to shrink to fit into someone else's expectations, they'd better be ready for the receipts. Because this generation, they come with the camera rolling. And the NFL, it's either going to evolve with that, or keep embarrassing itself, one false narrative at a time. So what do you think? Should Shadur dial it back for the sake of optics, or keep pushing forward as the face of a new era? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe if you're here for the drama, the breakdowns, and the unapologetic truth-telling. And hit that bell, because we're not done yet, not by a long shot. The thing about moments like this, where truth collides with narrative, is that they don't just expose one bad actor. They reveal the entire ecosystem. And the Rex Ryan versus Shadur Sanders fiasco, it's not just about a single commentator getting caught in a lie. It's about how the NFL, the media, and football culture at large have built an entire machinery designed to crush players who dare to color outside the lines. Shadur didn't commit a crime. He didn't slack off, cause a scene, or show disrespect. His so-called offense? Walking in like he belonged. Sitting at the front of the room with veterans. Studying film like his future depended on it. Because it does. Putting in the work behind the scenes and showing confidence in front of the camera. And that last part? That's the one that lit a fire under the old guard. Because Shadur Sanders understands something that generations before him couldn't even consider. In today's NFL, the grind isn't just on the field. It's also on camera. It's in how you brand yourself, how you control your image, how you shape your legacy in real time instead of waiting for someone else to tell your story. And that terrifies people like Rex Ryan, because the game has changed, and Rex, like many from his era, is still playing by rules that don't apply anymore. He thinks leadership means silence. That discipline looks like deference. That confidence is only earned after a decade of paying dues in the shadows. But here's what's so telling. Rex didn't criticize Shadur for performance. He didn't say he needs to improve his reads, or he's not NFL ready yet. He went straight for character, laziness, lack of work ethic, a baseless accusation that tried to define a player by the worst kind of stereotype. And that is what makes this more than a bad opinion. It was an attempt to discredit who Shadur is. And then he got caught, because the narrative didn't match the footage. The player he described didn't exist. And the video that surfaced, it wasn't a PR piece. It was raw, real documentation of who Shadur Sanders actually is behind the scenes. Locked in, focused, right there in the front, beside the vets, beside the coaching staff. Not just present, but engaged. Not just showing up, but leading by example. And this isn't about trying to prove he's perfect. It's about proving that the accusation wasn't just unfair. It was fabricated. So why lie? Why throw out a baseless attack that could follow a young player into the most high-pressure chapter of his career? Because for some people, it's more important to maintain the image of what a player is supposed to look like than to actually respect what they're doing. The NFL has always operated with unspoken codes, especially around quarterbacks. Be serious. Be humble. Be quiet until spoken to. And if you're not, you'll be labeled a distraction. Or worse, lazy. And once that label sticks, it's nearly impossible to shake. But what this moment proved is that players like Shadur aren't just playing football. They're fighting for the right to define themselves on their own terms. And when that definition challenges the comfort zone of former coaches or legacy commentators, the backlash gets loud, fast. It's important to recognize the ripple effects of that kind of slander. This wasn't just a bad take during a slow news cycle. When someone with a platform like Rex Ryan says a player doesn't have work ethic, that becomes part of conversation in war rooms, draft meetings, sponsorship deals. It travels. It sticks. It gets repeated, reshaped, and regurgitated until people start to believe it, unless the player fights back. And here's what makes this different. Shadur didn't need to respond with a quote or rebuttal. He let the footage speak. He let the receipts roll. He let the work defend itself. That's power. That's control. And that's how you dismantle a false narrative without lifting a finger. This situation shines a glaring spotlight on how selective the NFL is about who gets praised and who gets policed. For years, players have been told to be themselves, but only if that self fits a particular mold. Smile for the camera, but don't speak too freely. Be confident, but don't appear cocky. Build your brand, but not too fast. And definitely don't do it before the league tells you you've earned it. Shedeur is challenging all of that, strategically, confidently, and without compromise. He's not out here trying to be controversial. He's just refusing to play small, refusing to beg for credibility he's already earned. And the more he refuses, the louder the criticism becomes. Not because he's doing something wrong, but because he's doing something different. He's forcing a reckoning, one the league's been putting off for years. The NFL wants to sell personality, but punish it. It wants stars who light up the room, but only when they stay inside carefully drawn lines. And when someone steps outside those lines, they're called immature, or arrogant, or, in Shedeur's case, lazy. But the truth is that Shedeur Sanders is what the modern NFL looks like. Skilled, strategic, charismatic, and intentional. He's not waiting for someone to hand him a moment. He's making it. And he's not doing it at the expense of hard work. He's doing both. And that's the real threat. Because the traditionalists want it to be either slash or. Either you're the first guy in and the last one out, or you're on Instagram. Either you're studying film or you're building your personal brand. But Shedeur's out here doing both, and doing it better than most. And while the old school crowd fumbles to understand it, he's just stacking receipts. Not just for critics like Rex Ryan, but for the league itself. For every GM, every analyst, every whisper campaign trying to downplay what he brings to the table. This isn't just a PR win. It's a cultural shift. Because now, when someone tries to spin a false narrative, the proof lives on tape. And if the tape doesn't match the talk, that talk becomes irrelevant. That's what Rex didn't count on. He thought he could shape the story. But the story already had a paper trail. And the moment it went public, his credibility evaporated. What's wild is how common this tactic still is. Smear first, fact check later. Especially when it comes to players who challenge the league's comfort zones. Especially when it comes to confident young black quarterbacks who dare to act like they belong before being given permission. And here's the most uncomfortable part for the establishment. Shedeur isn't going to change. He's not going to tone it down, step back, or beg for approval. He's already made it clear this is who he is. And as long as he keeps showing up, doing the work, and staying ready, no narrative can erase that. The Rex Ryan incident was just a preview, a warning shot. A reminder that in this new NFL, the power is shifting. Players aren't just athletes. They're producers, editors, CEOs, and they don't need gatekeepers to validate them. The league has two options: evolve or keep getting embarrassed by the truth. Because the days of dictating who gets to be confident are over. The days of tearing down young players just to remind them who's in charge. They're dying. And every time someone like Shedeur stands tall in the face of it, the balance shifts even more. It's not just about proving people wrong. It's about proving what's possible. That you can be young and self-assured. That you can build a brand without selling your soul. That you can carry legacy on your back and still carve your own lane. That you don't have to shrink to be respected. Shedeur Sanders didn't just survive this controversy. He defined it with silence, with tape, with truth. And in doing so, he gave every young player watching a new model of what success can look like. One that doesn't rely on approval from the same voices that try to shut them down. Because the future of the NFL doesn't belong to the loudest critic. It belongs to the player with the receipts. Drop a comment. Should players like Shedeur be more reserved to avoid media drama? Or is this exactly what the league needs? A new era where talent, authenticity, and strategy are all on display at once? Subscribe for more breakdowns of the chaos behind the headlines. And don't miss the next moment when the old guard tries and fails to rewrite the story. Because the narrative, it's no longer theirs to control. Even after being publicly exposed, Rex Ryan never offered correction. No clarification. No acknowledgement that the footage completely dismantled his claim. Not a single moment of reflection from a man who tried to drag a 22-year-old quarterback's reputation through the mud on national television. Just a silence. But that silence says everything. Because when a narrative collapses that fast, when it crumbles under hard evidence. You either stand up and admit you were wrong, or you disappear and hope the story moves on. Rex chose the latter. And that's the difference between someone with integrity and someone just looking to stir the pot. But what makes this even more frustrating is how normal this behavior is. Young players like Shadur get called out for everything but their game. Personality gets weaponized. Confidence becomes a liability. And visibility? It's treated like a red flag instead of an asset. The NFL wants personalities, but only the kind they can control. Guys who smile during press conferences, say all the right things, and quietly wait for their marketing moment. But Shadur skipped the wait list. He showed up fully formed, confident, polished, and already drawing more attention than most rookies. He didn't need the league to manufacture his image. He already had one. That's where the discomfort really comes from. Because when a player walks into the room with both skill and self-assurance, people like Rex Ryan don't know what to do. They can't put him in a box, so they try to tear the box apart. They go for the one thing they think will stick. He doesn't work hard. It's lazy criticism, rooted in bias, not fact. And now, it's starting to backfire, because the league can't afford to keep pushing out this kind of gatekeeping. Fans see through it. Players see through it. And more importantly, receipts exist. Every meeting, every workout, every clip can go viral in minutes. You can't just lob accusations and expect them to float unchallenged. Shadur isn't a story the NFL gets to write anymore. He's writing it himself in bold, confident strokes. And if that threatens the old order, so be it. This wasn't just about clearing his name. It was about setting a precedent. That confidence isn't a crime. That visibility isn't disobedience. And that calling out a lie, especially one that's reckless, isn't drama. It's defense. And maybe the next time someone like Rex Ryan wants to launch a character attack for clicks, they'll think twice. Because this generation of players, they come ready. With presence, with poise, and with a full video archive to prove you wrong.